what's up? It's Caitlin and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video, I'm going to be doing my first ever dupe alert video. I was inspired by Juicy Jazz. She does a lot of these dupe videos, so I decided to give it a try. So today we will be doing the Wet n Wild 40 palette versus the James Charles Artistry palette. Ever since this baby came out, there has been so much talk that it is a straight up scam. It is a dupe for the James Charles palette. They stole his whole idea. So I did my own first impressions and makeup tutorial using the 40 palette, and then I decided to take it a step further. Is it really a dupe? Are the colors the exact same? We all know that the layout is very similar, but how is the quality? So that is what we are going to be doing today, guys. I'm going to be using the Wet n Wild 40 palette on one side of my face and the James Charles one on the other. But that is what we're going to be doing in today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoy it. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel. And when you subscribe, hit the post notification bell so you can be notified whenever I upload a brand new video. So without further ado, let's get started. Okay, so starting off with the Wet n Wild palette, that is going to be on my right side. I think the first color I'm going to go in with is going to be the hot pink at the very corner. I'm going to go in with this in my crease using a Morphe M513 brush. And we are just going to stamp this all in the crease. So right off the bat, this pink is pretty pigmented. There are places, I don't know if you can see that. You know what, hold on. Okay, I went ahead and zoomed you in a bit just because I feel like you can't really see anything. So like I was saying, this is pretty pigmented, but there is a little bit of patchiness right at the outer corner. It just takes a little extra time and effort, but overall, once you build it up, the patchiness does seem to go away. Okay, now grabbing my James Charles palette, we are going to take the pink shade in his palette, which is called Skip. So the Wet n Wild one does not have any shade names, but in James Charles palette, the pink shade is called Skip. I'm going to take that on another Morphe M513 brush. We're going to dip into this. And just like our other eye, we are going to stamp this into the crease. So first impression, this one definitely has way more pigment than the Wet n Wild one. It's not patchy. It seems to be going on much more smoothly. It's very easy to work with. So there's the pink both on. Looking in the mirror, I definitely like the James Charles one better than the Wet n Wild, just because I feel like it blended on much more smoothly and it did the work by itself. I didn't have to like do any harsh tapping. There was barely any choppiness. I will say just a little bit right here, but that may also be because of my primer. So jumping back over to the Wet n Wild palette, I think I'm going to go in with the purple that is right next to that pink. I'm going to take that on a Morphe M513, which is another fluffy brush. I'm going to put this right underneath that pink on the outer corner and pretty much smoking out the outer V. This one I feel like I'm having a little bit of a difficult time getting some pigment. It does look a little choppy. Yeah, it's not really that deep of color as I thought it would be. I'm going to try picking some up on my brush and just swirling it around on the outer V to hopefully give this some depth. Okay, that's about as deep as we're going to get. Now I'm going to go into the James Charles palette and take the purple right next to Skip, which is called Single. And same concept, I'm going to tap this on the outer V. Alright, first impression, this is much more deeper and a smoother shadow than the Wet n Wild one is. I know I've only used two colors so far out of the palette, but just my first impression, the James Charles ones definitely go on much more smoother and flawlessly. The Wet n Wild ones you really have to work with, and I'm already noticing that there's some creasing right here. So this outer edge is really bothering me. Y'all know I usually blend that out. So I'm going to go into the James Charles one first, and we are going to be taking the shade Pinkity Drinkity, which is a really pale blush color. I'm going to use that to blend out that outer edge. Now what's going to be really interesting is in the Wet n Wild palette, that dupe shade is actually a shimmer. But we're going to go ahead and work with it. So I'm going to go into the James Charles one first. I'm going to pick up that shade Pinkity Drinkity, and I'm picking that up on a Morphe M441. And we are going to blend out that outer edge. Ooh, that just gives it the perfect amount of pink. That is beautiful. Alright, going into the Wet n Wild one, we are going to go ahead and take that shimmer color. Let's pick that up. I don't know how well it's going to pick up on a fluffy brush, but I'm going to do the same exact thing. Alright, we have some on our brush, and I don't know if you can see that, but it looks like much a deeper shade. Okay, we're going to go ahead and do that. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. So I don't know if you can see this, but it is almost coming off a reddish tone. You can definitely see some of the shimmer. It's not as bad as I thought. It is definitely making the pink almost darker. Yeah, it definitely has some red tones in it. Yeah, all right here, totally red. So I want to go ahead and pick up some black and darken this outer corner. So I'm going to go into the Wet n Wild one, and I'm going to take the black that is on the 3rd row. I'm going to take that on a Japanesque 712. This is like a fluffy flat brush. So I'm going to dip into this. All right, and we are just going to put that a little bit on the outer corner. Nothing too intense, so I'm like barely touching my outer corner. Most of it is going on the eye tape, but I just want a little darkness right there. And then I'm going to dip back into the purple we were using in the palette, and I'm going to use this to blend out that black. Getting the James Charles palette, I'm going to go into the black in his palette, which is one of the large pans, and this is called Spooky. I'm going to take this on the flat side of this Farrah 22E Shade and Blend brush, and same thing, we are going to put this on the outer V. Okay, now that is interesting. Is the Wet n Wild black better? Okay, looking at them in the mirror, I do think the Wet n Wild one is more black. However, the James Charles one does blend much better, but I do think the Wet n Wild one is more black. Okay, I do want to use a shimmer on my lids. So looking at the palette, I'm looking at the Wet n Wild one first. I think I'm going to go into this shimmery blue right here. I'm going to take that on a Morphe M167. It's a flat brush. So we're going to dip into this, and I am going to go ahead and spray it. I'm not going to waste any time. All right, and I am going to put this on my lids. Ooh. Hello. I do wish this blue was a little lighter because I almost feel like it's coming off a lot darker than it does in the pan. I mean, this is it, and then this is my eye. I think it's coming off a little darker. So the shade in the James Charles palette that matches the Wet n Wild one is actually a matte. It's the shade called Brother. I would much rather use the shimmer called Acapella underneath it, but this is like a dupe alert video. I'm going to use the same exact shades. So we are going to go into the shade Brother. Grab another Morphe M167. I'm going to pick that up, and I don't need to spray my brush because obviously it's not a shimmer. Alright, we're going to put this on our lid. Oh, that looks so weird. I don't like it. Okay, I'm going to go back into the purple shade on the Wet n Wild side, and I'm going to use this to blend that blue with the purple. Same thing on the James Charles side. I'm going to go back in with the purple and use this to blend in with the blue. The James Charles one is obviously much easier to blend because mattes are easier to blend than shimmers. So we are almost done, and I know it's kind of looking a hot mess right now, but just bear with me. So I think I want to do something a little fun. So I'm going to go in with this red shade right here in the Wet n Wild palette. I'm going to dip into that using just a fluffy brush, and you don't want a lot, you just want a little bit. I'm going to take this color, and I'm just going to put this like right in the center of our transition shade. And same thing on the James Charles side. I'm going to go in with the red shade, which is called You're Kidding. I'm going to take that on a fluffy brush. Once again, you're not wanting a lot. And we're putting this right in the center of our crease. Okay, and that is it for the eyes. And right off the bat, I will tell you we are looking very different today. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go do the rest of my face off camera. When I come back, we will do some work on the lower lash line. And I will give you my thoughts because I already have a lot of them. So I will be right back. Okay, and we are back. So everything is done except for our work on the lower lash line. So we're going to jump into that right now. I'm going to take the Wet n Wild palette, and I think what I want to do is I want to go in with the orange at the very top. I'm just going to take a flat brush. This is nothing special. I'm going to dip into this, and I'm going to push that against my lower lash line. This orange, I have worked with it before, and it is a beautiful color. This does go on pretty flawlessly. Yeah, I like that orange a lot. In the James Charles palette, the orange shade is called Rusted, which is right here. So I'm going to take another flat brush and push this against the lower lash line. So to me, this has a little bit more red in it than the Wet n Wild one does. This is more red based, but they're pretty darn close. Alright guys, we are done, and that is today's video using the Wet n Wild palette versus the James Charles Artistry palette. So, looking at my eyes in the mirror, I think everything worked very similar except for the black and of course the blue. Obviously, the Wet n Wild blue was a metallic, the James Charles one was a matte. And because it was a matte, we almost have some straight up purple vibes going. The purple really blended in with the blue. I will also say that the black in the Wet n Wild palette seems to be a lot more pigmented than the one in the James Charles palette. However, the James Charles one blended way more easily than the Wet n Wild. So my verdict is this. Is the Wet n Wild 40 palette a dupe for the James Charles Artistry palette? I'm going to go ahead and give it a go and say yes. If you are looking for a cheaper alternative to the James Charles Artistry palette, then the Wet n Wild 40 palette is for you. But that is it for today's video, guys. I really hope you enjoyed it. Comment down below, let me know what your thoughts are on these two palettes. Also, let me know if you enjoyed this Dupe Alert series. I have some ideas going. I have some ideas for some more products that I could put against each other. I love you guys so much. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I will see you on the next one. Bye, guys.